Welcome back to the Authentic Human Podcast. I'm Michelle Vickers, and today is part 60 of the story of creation. Yes, part 60, which is so exciting. And so today, I have no idea what we're going to talk about yet because we're having conversations with universal beings, with the Creator. And the intention here is to give you the information you need about who you are and why you were created, but also to understand why you haven't been able to access that information for your whole life, because humanity hasn't been able to access this information for a very long time. The manipulation started over 50,000 years ago. And over that time, we have gained, and I use that word with levity, shall we say, we've gained so many layers of manipulation that we've forgotten the truth of who we are. And so the intention of this series, the story of creation, is to restore that wisdom back to you, to help you understand the roots of who you are. Because when we know who we are, we can't be manipulated, but also we actually can move forward in our role as a soul in this universe, right? We can't move forward with that intention, with that experience, if we're working with our mind and if we're working with the rules and limitations that we've been taught to perform inside of, if you will. And so today we're going to talk about, let's see first who's here. So we've got the Draconians again, which made their first appearance in part 59. And, they were explaining a lot about rulership. Okay. And so, there's a reason why we don't like to be told what to do. Because we're not supposed to be told what to do. We're self-governing. And so, this whole concept of follow the leader, right, it's planted, right? It's planted in our minds. The way they're showing me, this is going to be interesting. It looks like they're going to show us how to manipulate a human being, right. We have to understand this process so that you can understand what happened to you, okay? And it's also understanding that we're thousands of generations into this. So this is not, your mother did this to you, your grandparents did this to you. This is understanding thousands of generations have been lied to, and they keep lying. And so your belief systems in your head are basically, it's the way they keep showing me is with my hand. It's like a fistful of lies. That's what's in your head, is a whole bunch of lies about who you think you are and what you think you're capable of and what you think you're meant to be doing. But here's the thing. When you have a whole bunch of lies that you base your own self on, you also project that out. And what I mean by projecting out, because I know a lot of people use that term, but it's your filter that you use to screen everybody else. And what is another word for screening? Judging. Super fun when you accept that. And so ultimately, we're now at this place where they want you to understand what's really going on, okay? Because if you're lying to yourself, it takes a significant amount of courage and effort to first and foremost want to overcome those lies, okay? Because they want you to picture it this way, okay? The lies you tell yourself right now are like the biggest, comfiest place that you rest. It's like that big, comfy sofa or chair that you just want to snuggle into. You want to bring a blanket, right? you're safe, you're protected, you're warm, you're cozy, and you're super, super comfortable. That's what these particular lies are. So, why is it that way? Because these are the lies you've based your entire life and world on, your entire belief system. So, it's not like a little white lie where you think, oh, it's no big deal. Okay. And yet, that's exactly what it was. But it was, the intention was that it was thrown at you. I know that this is going to be a lot to take in today. And I know that your brain is really going to have to accept some different approaches to your belief systems about who you are. Okay. That's why we're doing it. I'm going to encourage you to feel the energy as much as you're hearing the words. The energy is actually more important than the words that I'm saying. Okay. So just allow yourself to feel it. That's where the wisdom, the true wisdom is, because that's where your soul is going to acknowledge the truth of what it's hearing right now. Okay. And here's the thing. You may not be ready for this level of truth. That's okay. That's totally okay. How do you know you're not ready? Because you're going to get angry at me and you're going to believe that I have no idea what I'm talking about and you're going to say that I'm crazy. That's fine. It means you're not ready yet. And I love that you can be able to recognize that and then move on with your day. Don't waste any of your time and energy continuing to be angry. Just move on with your day. Keep going. Okay. This is for those who are absolutely 100% ready to understand the systematic demise of human consciousness. Okay. That's what this is. They're breaking it down because these are the beings who took care of the mental manipulation. Okay. So they're the ones who can explain how it happened, right? They control it's funny because, they're controlling your resources, but they're not controlling the physical resources. They're controlling the mental and emotional resources. So the things you need, and we talked about this yesterday, right? That wanting to feel safe. When you feel safe, you'll talk about anything and everything. I haven't met a person in my entire 50 years of life that actually talks about anything and everything. There's not a single person on the planet, because we all have a part of us that is hiding from some aspect of the existence that we live in. So right now, it's understanding that these lies were told to train you to believe in an external belief system. That's the simplest explanation, because you have an internal belief system, right? That's the 9 fundamental energies. We keep talking about them because they're so important. They're the foundation of your existence. Again, if you're new here and you want information on them, they're all 9 are detailed in the book Believe, okay? But the thing is, that's your internal belief system. It's your internal navigation system, okay? Those 9 energies. What they did is they created an external navigation system, which means it's led by your mind, because your mind was never ever created to lead. It doesn't know how to lead. Okay. It is a follower. Important information, right? Because now all of a sudden you can see how those go together. Your mind it's a witness. It is not a leader. A leader understands how to feel energy and follow instincts, moving into the unknown. That is a leader, period. Things that have not been done before. That is exactly what every human being was created to do. That's how you were created to exist, you're created to explore your potential. Why? Because when every single human being explores their potential, you're exploring the potential of the universe itself. You're doing things that have never been done before. Now, when was the last time you did something that's never been done in the universe before? Right. Why? Because you've been trained to follow. This is really important. You also have this inner knowing that a piece of you is missing. It's a significant piece. You know, you have these experiences and these, moments in your life where you feel fulfilled and you feel excited and you feel inspired. But that true level of fulfillment is far between, because ultimately there's a part of you that's missing because you're not actually exploring your potential. Okay. This call is not about understanding what your potential is. We're going to get there. But you can't get there until you've actually accepted the depth of awareness and recognition that you can't actually explore it. Because if you aren't willing to acknowledge the fact that you are in a position where you're creating the same things over and over again, you can't actually create something new. Okay? So what this being, so again, these are Draconians, and he says, they're like an army. And an army, it's like a military trained forces, and visually it's everyone does the same thing. Everyone does what they're told. And it's groups of them that are then they're infiltrated into human existence. So they would, and planting is not the right word, they're because they're not planted in human existence. They're strategically placed, which is very different, right? Planted makes us think they're hidden. They're hidden there, and, they're manipulating us. They're actually placed there in these positions of power, okay, to misuse our trust and gain access to our power. Okay, so this is really important because I've never seen any of that. Obviously, I've never spoken to this universal being before. So before yesterday, but ultimately, it's very fascinating because this is how our belief systems, the structure of belief systems came to be. Because before this, it was complete freedom. There was no such thing as belief systems, right? There was no systems, like there was no religious systems, there was no behavior systems, so no education system, no financial system. All of these came to be as a result of strategically placing these beings in positions of power. Now, what that means is what they want you to understand is there was no power positions before. That's the point. That's the biggest point of all. There was no power positions before. Every human was walking around equal. There was no concept of social hierarchy. There was no concept of any of it, any hierarchy, period, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in government, country. Humanity was self-governing, and we all existed in the highest state and level of consciousness available because we knew how to be in existence. So I want you to understand for a moment that you've just forgotten how to be in existence. That's really what's going on here, okay? And so this system came in, okay, and they, by strategically placing these beings who were trained, right? So it's like that military, they're in big groups and they've all been trained how to act exactly the same way, exactly the same belief systems. And so what happened is they would introduce, uh, so they did this in human form also. So they would take on human traits, human behaviors, the way they're saying it is identification markers. So physically, mental and emotionally, they would seem like a human. Okay. Strategically done again. And so what they strategically taught to do, again, I know I keep using that word, but that's the one they're using. So what they were strategically taught to do at first was to bring in the concept of belief systems. And how they did that was by making other people second guess themselves. So you would be, okay, so this is going to be a bit tricky because now they want you to visualize, right, who you would have been without any of this manipulation. And so, you would have been in your exploration doing everything that you actually want to do. And someone would say, do you think that's okay? Do you think that's right? Do you think you might hurt someone? And they were strategic, like they were given the exact words and how to say them and when to say them, so that that person out of nowhere would start doubting. Now, we know that that's current day regular behavior. That's like Monday, right? It's Monday, it's 9:00. Yep, I've second guessed myself 3 or 4 times today because, I stepped in line at the coffee shop and somebody said, what do you want your coffee? And then are you sure you want that milk? Right? Like that's how destructive this behavior has become. Right? You go to the grocery store, it doesn't matter where you are. You're out with a friend and they're like, are you sure you want to do that? But that's how it started. So this reveals a lot. First and foremost, that there are human looking beings that are not human. Yay, that's fun to know. And yet we've already known, like none of this is shocking. And yet every part of it is like, oh shit, somebody said it. Now we got to have to actually deal with this truth. Right? That's the difference, right? From it being a concept of, I heard somebody talk about this, but I don't really know if it's true. And then I heard this person talk about it. Now we're at the place where it's going to get real because the reality is this is exactly what happened and this is how it happened. And so the reason you need to understand this approach, their approach in particular, right, is that your belief system is structured on lies. Every part of your belief system, because we don't actually have belief systems. We don't. There's no such thing. Because a belief system occurs in your mind. But if you're not leading with your mind, if you are always leading with energy and feeling into consciousness and universal existence, there is no such thing as a belief system. Right. So that's actually what humanity is going through right now. And for the next 8 months, so this is being recorded on August 15th, 2025. And they're saying for the next 8 months, everything is going to get very, very, very uncomfortable. Why? Because we need to actually see where all of our belief systems come from. What does that mean? That means that these lies that these Draconians started are going to be revealed. Does it mean it's going to, there's going to be a big sign up, or a headline in the newspaper on mainstream news? Draconians created this belief system. No, that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is everything that's not working is going to be revealed. And there's a lot of beliefs that you have that are not working for you, whether it's about your health, your wealth, your love, your relationships, your career, how you live, where you live in the world. All of these things are being challenged now, and they're going to be challenged more than ever, especially over the next 8 to 9 months. Why? So that you can actually come to the place of transformation. What is transformation? It means you can transcend those beliefs, not to have higher beliefs, but to actually break up with the concept of beliefs themselves. You can see why this is going to be challenging. Because we, at this point in our lives, need beliefs to feel safe and secure. How crazy is that? We need beliefs to feel safe and secure. And yet, you were created free of belief systems. But more importantly, you can't have belief systems if you want to explore and experience your potential. You can't work within any limits. This is why science is backwards. Science is based on belief systems. We know this is this. We know this is this, right? How many times do you see people being interviewed? And the last question is, what do you know for sure? We are addicted to belief systems. And this is going to challenge everything. It's not me challenging it. It's the universe. The universe is saying, this is done. That's why everything is getting so uncomfortable right now, because everywhere that humanity followed a belief system and that belief system was lacking, it's breaking. It's breaking down. It's crumbling. And you can see the biggest ones, the biggest illusion ones, are being ripped apart from the inside. And they're supposed to be. You can share below. Tell me how you feel. Like, what are the biggest belief systems that you see falling apart? I want to know what you see. Because honestly, I'm seeing tons of them every single day. Is it comfortable? No, it's not comfortable, but it's exciting. It's not comfortable, but it's exciting. And that's the whole point. That's why we're here. That's what we're meant to be doing right now, is genuinely exploring our potential. How do we get back to that? By obliterating any belief system that we have. Okay, so how do we do that? Ultimately, the way they're saying it is quite lovely. Ultimately, so now all the universal beings have come in. So the entire universal council. So these are all, when I say universal council, these are, the first of the first stream of angelics, the first of the second stream of angelics, the first, and why I say first is this is the original being of that stream of conscious existence. And they have full awareness of that whole entire stream and aspects of existence. Like I said, we're at part 60 today of the story of creation. I genuinely could do this for the next 500 years and never, ever, ever run out of information. I could do it for thousands of years. Why? Because that's existence. It is infinite, and there is so much value. There's so much information that we as humans need back. We need to have access to it again, right? That's why we're doing this, because it's that access to that information, right, that gives you the freedom to once again become who you're meant to be. So ultimately, to get that back to that place where you don't rely on belief systems means you're going to have to rely on your instincts. You're going to have to be able to feel. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, why can't I feel? Why won't I feel? Because you can, but you won't because there's areas and times and experiences where you don't feel safe. You know, it's funny. I had a moment this morning where I was watching this interview on the podcast Diary of a CEO. And he was interviewing a woman who is a she's some kind of brain scientist. I apologize because a neuroscientist, I think, as well as a therapist. And she was saying, you know, she was having all of these experiences where her husband had passed away, and she believed that he was talking to her. But she said her exact words, like it was crazy. She's like, but only crazy people do this. People who are desperate to have that connection back do these things. And so this is the problem with our society, right? Those are the people that are in positions of power. They've strategically been placed there to ensure that there is so much judgment, that it is so thick that we won't find the courage to move forward. And those of us who have, those of us who do, you know, you're the ones who are watching this and you understand what I'm saying. This is not crazy to you. This makes sense, and it's opening new concepts and, you know, new awarenesses for you. And it feels like, yep, okay, that makes sense. You know, we are the ones also who are still judged on a regular basis, and that's fine. But it's understanding that that judgment was strategically placed. That's what they're talking about. Because when you create a mass belief system, you open the world to judgment. That's it. The first belief, like the concept that you go through this life, right? This religious belief that you go through life and you'll be judged at the end, whether you can go to heaven or hell. Whoever thought that one up, whoa. They nailed control and manipulation in one belief system. And you're carrying it around, whether you believe it or not. This is the world you live in. And yet, it's not the world you belong in. It's not a world based on truth. It is a world based on lies. And they're all inside of these belief systems. And that's what we're going to continue to uncover. Why? Because we want to document the real history of human existence. So today, your job is just to notice how many belief systems are around you. Maybe they're in your mind. Maybe you see someone else talking about it. Maybe you overhear a conversation. Maybe you notice something, right? Those 4 pillars, right? We've got the education system, the financial system, the medical system, and the religious system. Maybe you notice some of them. And then you've got the government who ensures, right? This is world government, guys. So you've got this world government who ensures that those 4 pillars exist within each sector of existence. And the sectors in this case are countries. Everything has been planned because there were no countries before. Just let that sink in. There were no boundaries. There were no limits. We didn't need them because we're self-governing. When you have full conscious awareness of who you are, you don't take from anyone else because you know you have access to everything you need. Why would you need a boundary? Right? You don't. There's no such thing as limits. The whole system is built on lies. We're going to break them down. One sweet lie at a time. Why? So you can become whole. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know how this made you feel. And if you're there with me, or if you're just not quite ready for this level yet. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
This Draconian that you, one, called a universal being, so I'd like to hear about that. And two, I'm wondering about how to be as fearless as you around a being like that, and how you ever, like, this scares me a little bit, the idea of Draconian, etc. Like, even though I didn't feel scared on the call because you were here and I
Yeah.
felt your energy, um, it's just a question about how you could be as fearless. Like, what happened that your mind, your belief isn't holding on to anything about scary beings and how to
Okay.
protect yourselves?
They're not what we've been told. We've been told to fear, right? Again, belief system strategically. But here's the thing, I'm not thinking at all when I'm connecting. My brain is off. So I don't have any preconceived notions about whoever's coming in. I'm just feeling their energy. You instantly know if they're from this universe or not because they have the vibration of connection, which is love, right? So the first time I felt beings that don't have that, right? This was almost 20 years ago. And I was like, whoa, who are you? You're something's missing. That's right away. That was my first instinct, was something's missing. But when you're in the energy, you know what someone else's intention is. You know if their intention is to harm at all. Like there was none. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to learn more, head on over to michellevickers.com. Join our mailing list to receive new episodes right to your inbox, or apply to be a guest on the show. If this episode made you think of someone while you were listening, forward the link onto that person with a little note about why it made you think of them, because the greatest gift you can give another human is to see the beauty and purity of who they truly are. Until next time, stay curious.